Before we begin, make sure you're somewhere quiet. Turn off the lights. Put on your headphones. Because the stories you're about to hear aren't just scary. These are the kinds of experiences people don't talk about. If you enjoy true horror stories, unsettling encounters, and disturbing events that happen to real people, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Now, let's begin. I was in 7th grade when it happened, which is why I still remember every detail so clearly. Field trips were the one thing everyone looked forward to. A day away from class, sitting on a bus with friends, pretending the teachers weren't watching us the entire time. This one was supposed to be simple. A history museum about 2 hours away. Old buildings, guided tours, gift shop at the end. We'd done trips like that before. Nothing dangerous. Nothing exciting. Nothing that should have gone wrong. There were 3 buses total. I was on bus 2. I remember our teacher, Mr. Halvorsen, counting heads before we left the school parking lot. He did it twice, like he always did. I remember because he joked about how one day he'd forget and accidentally take an extra kid home. Everyone laughed. The bus ride was loud. Kids shouting, laughing, throwing paper, listening to music on cheap earbuds. About halfway there, the bus stopped at a rest area so everyone could use the bathroom. That's where things started to break. The rest area wasn't a big one. Just a bathroom building, some picnic tables, and a short wooded trail behind it with a sign that said a nature walk, 0.5 miles. Teachers told us not to wander. Of course, some kids did anyway. I didn't go far. Just followed a couple friends a short distance down the trail before we got bored and turned back. One kid didn't. His name was Tyler. He was quiet. The kind of kid teachers forgot about and classmates barely noticed. He wasn't bullied, just invisible. When we got back on the bus, I remember Mr. Halvorsen counting again. He paused. Counted a second time. Then frowned. Anyone seen Tyler? He asked. A few kids shrugged. Someone said he'd been in the bathroom. Another said they thought he was already on the bus. Mr. Halvorsen told us to sit tight and got off the bus. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Finally, he came back, face tight and pale. Okay, he said too calmly. Everyone stay seated. We didn't leave immediately after that. Another teacher came. Then another. They walked toward the trail. Eventually, someone came back and said Tyler must have gotten back on a different bus by mistake. That explanation didn't sit right. But adults have a way of making kids accept things they don't fully understand. We left. I remember watching the rest area disappear through the window, feeling uneasy for a reason I couldn't explain. At the museum, the trip continued like normal. Guided tour. Lunch. Gift shop. But something was off. Every teacher seemed tense. Whispering. Checking phones. At one point, I overheard a chaperone say, "They still haven't found him." That's when it hit me. Tyler wasn't on another bus. When we got back to school, police were waiting. Parents, too. We were told to go straight home and not talk to anyone about what happened. That made it worse. That night, my parents told me Tyler was missing. Search teams were looking for him. They said he probably wandered deeper into the woods and got lost. They said he'd be found. He wasn't. They searched for days. Then weeks. They found his backpack about a mile from the rest area. That's it. No blood. No signs of struggle. No footprints. Just the backpack, placed neatly at the base of a tree. Years passed. The story faded. Until my senior year of high school. I was at a diner late one night with friends when a local news story came on TV. They'd found remains in the woods near the old rest area. Human remains. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, the story was everywhere. Dental records confirmed it was Tyler. But the details didn't add up. The remains were found less than 300 feet from the trail, in an area that had been searched multiple times. More than that, the medical examiner said something strange. The remains showed signs of long-term exposure, but not in the way you'd expect. It was as if Tyler hadn't been there the whole time. As if he'd been placed there much later. Then came the final detail that still haunts me. In the dirt near the remains, investigators found impressions. Not footprints. Kneeling marks. Multiple. Like someone had spent a long time crouched there. Watching the trail. Watching the buses. Waiting. To this day, they don't know what happened to Tyler. But I still think about that head count. How close it was. How easily someone could have slipped away unnoticed. And how field trips teach you one terrifying truth very early in life. You don't need to be alone to disappear. Our 8th grade field trip was supposed to be the highlight of the year. 3 days. 2 nights. A state-run outdoor education camp deep in the forest. The kind of place schools trusted because it had been used for decades. Cabins, trails, a dining hall, and a big open fire pit where counselors told stories at night. It felt safe. Too safe. The bus ride took nearly 5 hours. By the time we arrived, it was already late afternoon. The camp was surrounded by thick trees on all sides, no nearby roads, no houses, no cell service. The counselors joked about it. Perfect place to disappear, right? One of them laughed. Everyone laughed. The first night went fine. Campfire, dinner, stupid games. Teachers reminded us to stay in groups and not wander after dark. Cabins were split by gender. Each had bunk beds and one adult supervisor sleeping near the door. I slept on the top bunk. That's important. Sometime during the night, I woke up to the sound of whispering. At first, I thought I was dreaming. Then I realized it was coming from outside the cabin. Low. Urgent. Too quiet to understand. I rolled over and looked down. Everyone else was asleep. I strained to listen, but the whispering stopped the moment I focused on it. The next morning, one of the kids, Aaron, didn't show up for breakfast. Teachers weren't immediately alarmed. They assumed he overslept. Then they checked his cabin. His bed hadn't been slept in. The counselors did a quick head count. Aaron was missing. Panic spread fast. Teachers gathered us in the dining hall and told us to stay put. Counselors started searching the nearby trails. An hour passed. Then 2. Finally, Aaron came walking out of the trees near the camp entrance. Alone. Dirty. Shoes muddy. When teachers asked where he'd been, he said something that didn't make sense. I was here, he said. I never left. They asked why he wasn't in his bed. He stared at them. He repeated. They chalked it up to sleepwalking. That explanation didn't satisfy anyone. The second night was worse. After dinner, the counselors decided to do a nighttime hike, something controlled, they said. Just a short trail loop with flashlights. Before we left, the lead counselor did roll call. He read names. Kids answered. Normal. Until he got to Aaron. Aaron. There was a pause. Then a voice answered. Here. It came from behind us. From the direction of the trees. Everyone turned. Aaron was standing in line. He hadn't moved. He hadn't spoken. The counselor frowned and said his name again. Aaron. This time, Aaron answered. Here. His voice came from right in front of us. No one laughed. No one joked. The counselor cleared his throat and continued roll call like nothing had happened. The hike was tense. Flashlights shook. No one strayed from the group. Halfway through the trail, we heard footsteps moving parallel to us, not part of the group. When someone shined a flashlight into the woods, there was nothing there. Just trees. And silence. Back at camp, teachers argued quietly. I overheard one say, "This isn't normal." Another replied, "We'll leave early." That night, I couldn't sleep. From my top bunk, I could see the cabin window. Around 2 a.m., I noticed movement outside. A figure. Standing just beyond the clearing. Still. Watching. I froze. Then I realized something that made my blood run cold. It was standing too still. Not swaying. Not shifting weight. Just there. The figure lifted its head slightly. And I heard whispering again. Not words. Just sound. The next morning, Aaron was gone again. This time, they found his shoes neatly placed outside the cabin door. No footprints leading away. No footprints coming toward them. The counselors cancelled the trip immediately. Buses arrived early. As we boarded, the lead counselor did one last head count. He hesitated. Then shook his head and continued. On the bus ride home, no one talked. Later that week, we were told Aaron had been taken home by his parents. That was a lie. Years later, I ran into one of the counselors at a grocery store. I asked him about that trip. His face drained of color. They told us not to talk about it, he said quietly. I asked what really happened. He swallowed. Aaron answered roll call again, he said. After he was already gone. I asked how many times. He didn't answer. He just said, whatever was out there, it learned our voices. And that's why I still don't answer my name too quickly. Because sometimes something else might be listening. Our senior year history field trip was optional. That alone should have been a red flag. It was advertised as a visit to a closed historical settlement, an abandoned mining town that had been shut down decades ago after a structural collapse. The site wasn't open to the public, but our school had received special permission for an educational tour. Only 22 students signed up. 2 teachers. 1 bus driver. 1 guide. The guide's name was Mr. Harlan. That's what he told us. He met us at the entrance gate, already waiting when the bus arrived. Older man. Late 50s maybe. Khaki jacket, clipboard, soft voice. He smiled too easily. The first thing he said stuck with me. Once we begin, he said, please don't wander. People get turned around here very easily. Someone joked, it's just a ghost town. Mr. Harlan smiled again. Nothing here is just anything. The town sat in a shallow valley surrounded by hills and trees. Buildings leaned inward like they were listening. Rusted signs creaked even without wind. No birds. That was the second red flag. We followed Mr. Harlan down a dirt path into the center of town. He talked constantly, facts, dates, names. But something felt off. He never once looked at his clipboard. Halfway through the tour, I realized something else. There were no footprints. The dirt path was smooth. Untouched. Not even ours. We reached an old schoolhouse. Mr. Harlan stopped and turned to face us. This building, he said, is where the last recorded gathering took place. One of the teachers asked, gathering of what? Mr. Harlan paused. Everyone, he said. Before anyone could ask more, he turned and walked inside. The schoolhouse was cold. Not cool, cold, like standing next to an open freezer. Dust hung in the air, unmoving. Desks were still arranged. Books sat open. Names were carved into the wood. Recent names. One student whispered, "This doesn't feel abandoned." Mr. Harlan stopped near the chalkboard. History doesn't leave, he said. It waits. That's when we noticed one of the students was missing. Lena. She'd been walking behind me the entire time. Teachers called her name. No answer. Mr. Harlan frowned for the first time. She must have gone ahead, he said calmly. It happens. They didn't like that answer. We searched outside. Nothing. No Lena. No footprints. The teachers decided to cut the tour short. They told Mr. Harlan we were leaving. He nodded. Of course, he said. The exit is this way. We followed him. 10 minutes passed. Then 15. The path kept going, but nothing changed. Same buildings. Same broken signs. Same leaning structures. One student whispered, "Didn't we already pass this?" Mr. Harlan stopped. No, he said. But he didn't turn around. We passed the schoolhouse again. Same open door. Same chalkboard. Someone started crying. The teachers demanded we stop. Mr. Harlan turned slowly. You can stop, he said. But the tour continues. One of the teachers grabbed him by the arm. Her hand went through him. Not like a ghost in movies. Like static. Like grabbing smoke that resisted. Mr. Harlan looked down at her hand. Then back at us. His smile faded. This is where people usually panic, he said. That's when Lena's voice echoed from inside the schoolhouse. Can someone help me? She sounded close. And far. The teachers told us to stay together. We didn't. Panic fractured the group. Some ran toward the voice. Some froze. I stayed near the doorway. Inside, I saw Lena standing at the front of the room. Facing the chalkboard. She wasn't tied. She wasn't hurt. She was writing. Names. Our names. When she finished the last one, she stopped. Then she turned around. Her eyes were wrong. Too still. Too empty. I don't think we're students anymore, she said. Mr. Harlan stepped inside behind us. This town was never abandoned, he said softly. It just needed replacements. The lights went out. Not darkness, absence. I don't remember running. I remember falling. I remember silence breaking like glass. I woke up on the bus. Engine running. Everyone accounted for. Except Lena. The teachers were shaken but alive. The bus driver swore we'd never left the entrance. No guide. No town. Just a locked gate and forest beyond it. Later, officials told us the site didn't exist. No records. No permits. No Mr. Harlan. Years later, I looked up missing persons tied to field trips. I found one photo. Black and white. A class standing in front of a schoolhouse. At the edge of the frame stood a man with a clipboard. And written on the chalkboard behind them were names. Including mine. The caption read, Educational visit, 1953, group never returned. And at the bottom, barely visible, tour in progress.